As línguas de sinais não são universais. Assim como as pessoas ouvintes de diferentes países falam línguas diferentes, as pessoas surdas de países diferentes também falam línguas de sinais diferentes. Por exemplo, a língua de sinais dos Estados Unidos, a língua de sinais do México, a língua de sinais do Brasil, a Libras, língua brasileira de sinais. Entretanto, existem pessoas surdas que por diferentes motivos não têm contato com outros surdos e acabam por desenvolver sinais próprios, sinais familiares. Isso se deve ao fato do surdo ter uma capacidade muito grande de, através de gestos e de pantomimas, desenvolver uma comunicação quando ele observa as expressões faciais, corporais de outras pessoas. E quando eles entram em contato com o mundo, com a comunidade, com o mundo dos surdos, eles têm dificuldade em se comunicar e de serem compreendidos também. E o documentário que você vai ver agora vai nos contar um pouco sobre isso.
It's often said that the power of language is what distinguishes our species. As a neurologist and a writer, I am utterly dependent on language, spoken and written.
Há um ano ouvi falar de um grupo de pessoas que imediatamente aguçou minha curiosidade. Eram deficientes auditivos que não possuíam linguagem. Costumamos achar que poucos deficientes auditivos têm o poder da linguagem, mas, na verdade, o que lhes falta não é a linguagem, mas a fala.
As I discovered 10 years ago, when I first encountered the deaf world, most deaf people use a language as subtle and complex as the one I'm using now. This is sign language, and its chief difference from spoken language is that it takes place silently in space. Deaf children pick up this rich language of signs as instinctively as hearing children pick up speech. But if for some reason they are not exposed to sign language, they may fail to develop any language at all. How then would they communicate with the world? How would they think?
Leandro, Leonardo e Rodolfo são irmãos. Eles nasceram no México. Seus pais não tinham dinheiro para mandá-los para uma escola de deficientes auditivos. Eles nunca aprenderam a língua dos sinais. Hoje vivem com a família no norte da Califórnia e trabalham numa fazenda. Um dia, Lucy apareceu nas ruas de Los Angeles. Ela também não possuía nenhum tipo de linguagem. Não tinha nome, endereço, nem nada que indicasse de onde ela era ou o que tinha vivido.
I'm intrigued by this because language seems a quintessentially human attribute and one which separates us from all the other higher primates. Much of what one would have thought essential about the human mind and human life is connected with language. So what is it like to be human without language?
Quando chegamos ao conjunto habitacional onde os irmãos vivem, em uma cidade cercada por fazendas, percebi que a situação era mais complicada do que havíamos presumido. Em vez de encontrar pessoas sem nenhum tipo de linguagem, descobrimos que os irmãos usavam uma língua inventada, uma mistura de gestos e mímica desenvolvida por eles.
And then when he was trimming it, you looked up. Oh, I was trimming, and then I look up and this huge branch comes on me.
Trouxemos uma equipe. Charlene O'Hooley é uma surda havaiana, especialista em traduzir gestos inventados por povos sem linguagem para a língua de sinais formal.
That's something.
Susan Scheller é uma dessas raras pessoas que possuem audição que conhecem a língua dos sinais. Ela trabalhou com deficientes auditivos sem linguagem durante muito tempo. Como não sou muito fluente na língua dos sinais, Susan seria nosso elo de ligação entre Charlene e os irmãos, traduzindo o máximo que pudesse com a ajuda de Charlene para o inglês falado.
Susan drinks coffee, is that it? The coffee drinker. The tree trimmer. I don't know.
O que me impressionou imediatamente em relação à situação dos irmãos foi que eles formam uma família coesa. Seu forte senso de valores e crenças trazido do México encontrou uma nova vida na América. Perguntei aos pais como foi a criação de seus filhos deficientes.
No, pues mis hijos nacieron en México, todos. Y pues primero traje dos, los más grandes, conmigo a trabajar. Luego ya vino, mi mujer con otros tres, que ya luego me quedaron otros 5 allá, entonces ya me los traje. Yo me pasé durante 20 años yendo a mi tierra, mes, 2, 3 meses, pero siempre aquí. Yo tengo más de 20 años trabajando al país.
Son 10 por todos. Y 5 hablando y 5 que no hablan. Y yo en mi familia, pues todas mis hermanas y mis hermanos, sus hijos hablan y menos los míos.
Na primeira manhã, acompanhamos os 3 irmãos mais velhos até o trabalho. O pai, seu contato com o mundo exterior, conseguiu emprego para eles com um fazendeiro simpático. Ele os leva até o pomar diariamente e age como seu intérprete.
I've never seen a languageless person in action, at work, at home, in the village, doing whatever these 3 brothers do. This is a very, very extraordinary situation. But I just want to see the brothers in the field and how they communicate, how they coordinate, how they convey their experience. I want to get some feeling of what their experience is like. I want to know what their world picture is like.
Os gestos de Rodolfo são intensos e rápidos.
Oh, here, there. They all open up. All of this, every little one. Now open up. Okay, as it grows, as it unfolds.
Aqui no pomar de peras, ele fala sobre coisas que pode ver e tocar.
The flowers, the blossoms, the white flowers. And then the flowers will appear everywhere.
Mas não havia nada que ligasse esses gestos individuais que Rodolfo repetia várias vezes. E notei que a língua dos sinais de Charlene, por sua vez, parecia dar sentido ao processo.
That little bit will be about this big. The flower will be that big, yeah. What does the fruit look like? Oh, it's just covered. Everywhere's covered, and the leaves.
Quando o pomar estará cheio de brotos? Eu estava curioso para saber como Rodolfo responderia a esta pergunta. Uma pergunta abstrata sobre o tempo. A solução de Rodolfo foi fazer mímica, como se estivesse virando as páginas de um calendário. Ele estava representando um conceito através de uma ação física.
He's describing the pages of a calendar as 20 pages pass. In 2 weeks, they'll all be in full bloom.
Demorou, mas funcionou.
Well, they came to me about 5 years ago, and they didn't really know much about pears at all. And so then the first year, I put them in the pear orchard and showed them how to prune, and then we've kind of gone from there. And so they've developed into some of my finest pruners in the orchard. And our communication sometimes lacks a little bit, but we're able to go about business out here.
Mas, às vezes, os gestos dos irmãos não fazem sentido algum.
Okay, the middle part. You put hot sauce on? Something with sauce, and then we cook it, and then we eat that. What's this mean? What's this mean? When you put your arm under your hand on your arm, what's that mean? What? Explain that. What? Yes. Oh, they cook it for the animals. Oh, they feed it to the animals. Gesture is so individual. So each person has his or her own name, own description, and it's not shared by anyone else. I mean, even if the gesture is understood by everyone, it may not be copied, it may not be repeated by another person. So every single person, in a sense, has his or her language. And that's what's so, it's interesting. It's interesting to see human beings come up with a separate language. Every single person could come up with a different language. But it's awfully time consuming. You have to figure out, okay, what are you saying? And I say it this way. And then you have to keep trading, and you trade and you trade and you trade until you come up with a common understanding, but you may not come up with any common words, any common signs.
A particularidade da linguagem é que ela é compartilhada em conversas e livros. É um bem cultural transmitido de geração em geração. Nada disso se aplica aos irmãos. Seus chamados sinais caseiros formam um léxico local, desenvolvido entre eles e que pode variar de um dia para o outro. Passamos a maior parte da manhã explorando o mundo dos três irmãos e só conseguimos falar sobre brotos e uma estranha comida feita de bambu. Mas, apesar de todas as limitações de seu mundo, eu não pude deixar de notar uma forte ligação entre os irmãos. Nos poucos contatos que tive com pessoas sem linguagem, percebi que elas eram totalmente alheias à família e à comunidade, isoladas e segregadas. Este não era o caso aqui.
The brothers were at home with their biological family. They obviously loved working with their father in the fields. They were really part of his world. They could share his world.
Como confirmamos no dia seguinte na plantação de alcachofra, os gestos dos irmãos se adaptam perfeitamente ao seu mundo.
We got a couple problems in here. We got a worm problem. Since these are organic, I'm having a problem controlling worms.
It's easy for you to demonstrate the problems and for them to pick up what's needed and how to grade them?
Well, I just like this one here. I said you don't want to eat it, so, you know, you throw that on the ground, and the worm is like this, right? Because a worm goes like that, and he knows what a worm does. So we have the same problem in the pears with the worms.
A simplicidade do léxico facilitou a comunicação entre Rick e os irmãos.
In actuality, it's somewhat easier sometimes for me to work with these than, say, a Guatemalan or something where the dialect is so different than the Spanish, and my Spanish is limited, so.
Vi Leonardo fazendo o gesto circular estranho.
It says, be careful, watch out for the snakes. They're under the artichoke plants. Oh, and they're rattlesnakes. They have little rattles on them. There's little rattles.
Even I can pick up that he's miming the rattle of a rattlesnake. He's obviously seen these little rattlers around.
If a snake bites you, what happens? You die, you die. He gave a gesture for sleeping, but then sort of down, maybe down in the ground. He gave a sign for up, maybe God, maybe heaven.
It was almost as if he was one was falling into the ground and then maybe looking up at heaven or whatever.
They have a hand shape. They start out with a hand shape, and then they will add to it more detail. And so you have, you know, this shape, or, you know, some teeth, or you try to match up. Okay, what has teeth like that, or what has that shape? And then they get to snake. They add the movement, and then the snake bites you. And then what happens? And how do they show poison and death? They have to keep trying and experimenting. What do you do? Oh, you have an idea of heaven, or death in the spirit, or whatever they can come up with. And it becomes this real acting job. So it's sometimes very beautiful because we do it on the stage. You know, you put someone on the stage and they exaggerate and they act, and that's the way they're communicating. So they become very skilled actors.
Any bunch of guys, including myself, will make mistakes, and so we'll come back and we'll learn from the mistakes. You know, I can see right now that they've missed some stuff there, but you know, we'll fine-tune that, and we'll get this thing down where they'll be the best artichoke pickers this side of the Golden Gate.
Vendo os irmãos trabalhando, senti que eles estavam totalmente concentrados. Entenderam imediatamente a diferença entre uma alcachofra ruim e uma boa. Eles estavam vivendo e pensando intensamente naquela plantação de alcachofra. Mas você pode alegar que a vida não é uma plantação de alcachofra.
We see things from our own point of view. So while we may see the deaf as disabled, they, to our indignation, may see us as disabled. But I'm wondering whether people with no language, instead of feeling disabled, may feel a sort of completeness and coherence in themselves, a fullness of being which doesn't require language and which might be spoiled, indeed, by language.
Mais tarde, no silêncio da floresta de sequoias gigantes, conversei sobre isso com Charlene, que foi criada em uma família normal que usava um sistema de sinais inventado.
When I look at the three brothers and their language, I should not take their kind of language away. Something they've learned from the time they were born, growing up. I want to remind the world that they do have something. They have something special, and they feel comfortable with what they have, and you can't take it from them. They can learn our language, but we can share and trade. Their gestural system, it does have limitations, but there's something that we can learn.
The question is, can we add language to whatever they have, or would the attempt to do so necessarily transform them in a way which might give them great power and a new being, but might also sort of take away this primal mode of being which they have. In other words, language is not like a skill or faculty which you add. Language transforms being. Language transforms one into becoming a verbal organism. And if they are non-verbal organisms at the moment, one stands to destroy the current organism to create a new one.
Não precisei ir longe para perceber o efeito que a linguagem pode ter em um indivíduo. Na família, há 2 filhos mais novos que frequentam a escola local para surdos-mudos.
I think a very interesting and tantalizing dynamic may be developing in the family with the 2 teenage deaf youngsters, the boy and the girl, Jesus and Veronica, who are now acquiring sign and achieving powers of reference and abstraction which the older 3 don't have, and at the same time departing, as it were, from the cozy fivesome which they used to be.
Pues yo con mis hijos todavía, los otros más grandes, pues así como me comunicaban antes, así sigo siendo. Y con estos ya no.
Y es más
Sí,
diferente.
y a estos es más diferente porque o sea, señas le dicen a uno todo lo que quieren.
Now, when you were learning the sign language, did it make you feel happy? You were learning sign, and yes, I was smiling. You liked it? Oh, yes, yes. How did it feel? You liked what? What did you like? Oh, I was happy. Did you start talking to friends? Yes, I started talking and conversing with different people and then signing more and more. And yes, friends and I would sign. And you look at your brothers and you see the difference. How do you feel yourself compared to your 3 brothers? Well, the middle one. He can sign pretty well, actually. We communicate pretty well. Yeah, we can. We communicate well. The middle one. And the other 2? Well, they're gone a lot. Well, how do you feel? You sign. How do you feel about signing? About being is life better? Oh, yes, life is better. And the 2 other brothers, they're gone and they're stuck, really, and they don't communicate as much. And
I was very struck when I came in yesterday. Leonardo was sitting in the corner, and a number of us were speaking and signing, and Leonardo's eyes were jumping everywhere in a sort of restless, I thought almost a frenetic search for meaning to try and pick up what was going on. And this seemed to me in great contrast to Jesus's steady gaze, his newfound steady gaze on signing hands, now that he has started to acquire sign language and has started to enter this world of shared meanings. In general, the acquisition of language and powers of reflection and generalization, the acquisition of conceptual world should increase the depth and the wonder of the perceptual world and give it depths of meaning and coherence which it didn't have before. And so now you not only have the perceptual world, but you have its meaning as well. And this is what language offers, and what thought offers, and what perhaps, to some extent, the languageless may be denied or deprived of.
A coerência e o significado do mundo dos irmãos eram garantidos por seu pai, que conhecia sua história.
Lucy Doe was in a quite different situation. We didn't even know her real name. She'd been living on the streets without ID or an address. All her contacts with society had been fleeting and disconnected. She first came to the notice of the social services in 1992 when she was arrested by the police in Ventura County. So who was Lucy Doe? Where'd she come from?
She was out on this light pole, and when the officer spotted her and she was dancing, hanging on the light pole and coming out into the street, the officer made a U-turn to try and contact her, and she ran across the street and started dancing and interfering with traffic here also.
She just showed up wandering around. We have no idea where she was born, where she's from, what kind of place. We have no idea, no clue. We haven't yet found out. Because we try, we ask questions, many, many questions. And she answers, but she can't fingerspell the name of a place. She can't say where she lived, where she's from.
I was amazed. I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, I've been on this job for 30 years, and I've never seen anything like it. I never dealt with a person who at least couldn't communicate in some way. And my impression early on was that she was not from the United States.
Uma investigação nacional foi organizada e a foto de Lucy foi publicada em jornais dos Estados Unidos e da América Latina. Mas ninguém apareceu dizendo conhecer Lucy ou saber algo sobre ela. Como ela havia vivido até então.
One thing we did notice, though, is she was extremely friendly to the male officers as compared to the female officers. So we had the male officers basically stay away from her. Her issue with how friendly she was towards males led me to believe that that's how she got her subsistence. You know, she was friendly to males, and they gave her room and board or whatever. That's what it seemed like to me. Now, whether that played out or whether that's true or not, I don't know, but there was definitely an issue there.
A própria Charlene levou Lucy para ficar com sua família, mas achou impossível satisfazer sua necessidade por atenção.
Finally, she was just frustrated and she left. She just took off. It was just too much, and I think she was confused. So she went off. And I don't know what happened. I don't know where she went. I heard that she was arrested over and over again. And she went back to, well, I'll just call it, I don't know, street living, prostitution. I don't know. I really don't know. She was arrested over and over again. After about a year, I heard no more about her. I don't know where she went to. She disappeared.
Depois de muita procura, descobrimos que Lucy tinha sido internada num hospital estadual perto de Los Angeles. Cruzamos o interior do sul da Califórnia para encontrá-la. Este seria o primeiro contato de Charlene com Lucy depois de mais de um ano. Charlene ensinara a Lucy alguns sinais, mas como seria encontrá-la e tentar se comunicar agora? Quando ela veio nos encontrar, eu não sabia o que esperar. Quando fomos apresentados, fiquei comovido com a afetuosidade e a simpatia de Lucy. E ela, obviamente, havia aprendido um pouco da língua dos sinais.
And I'm Lucy, L-U-C-Y. That's me. What's his name? What's his name? Lucy's my name. Joan?
Mas ainda não tínhamos progredido muito quando as limitações de sua linguagem transformaram uma pergunta simples num frustrante jogo de charadas.
When was the last time you saw Charlene? How long ago? Okay, before we left, before we didn't see each other, how long has that been?
Lembrei-me dos gestos de Rodolfo imitando um calendário e imaginei como Lucy representaria seu senso de tempo.
I was at somebody's home and there was no more Charlene and we separated and I was crying. At home with the mother, I don't know what that house is. I don't know where she's talking about.
When?
She doesn't seem to understand the concept of time. But I'm going to try again. When, a long time ago, when in the past did we separate? My mother, my home, and the house. she's not used to counting time. She doesn't have the idea of 6 months or 7 months, but she obviously has a concept of time because she asked, when is she going to get the money for helping us?
This is a while ago.
Yes, a while ago.
No. Did she have this sign or this concept, say, 6 months ago, or when you last saw her, Charlene?
Yes, she always had some feeling of past, but she never had any kind of, you couldn't point to anything in the past. It always was in the past. It could be very recently or it could be a long, long time ago. But it was just one general concept sometime back there.
Os irmãos e Lucy estão limitados ao concreto e ao aqui e agora de uma forma quase literal. Para eles, é difícil fazer afirmações sobre o passado e o futuro ou sobre lugares remotos. É difícil localizar eventos no espaço e no tempo. A diferença de Lucy era sua ansiedade para nos contar histórias sobre outras épocas e outros lugares, e o esforço que ela fazia para se comunicar, além do que seus gestos conseguiam expressar. Ela viu um cogumelo que parecia ter um significado especial, mas nenhum de nós conseguiu entender o que ela queria dizer.
Her sister. So she's talking about something about the mushroom brought up a memory about her mother and her sister. But is it her sister? Is it her sister that she's talking about?
Go on, go on. But what's the memory?
She didn't want to talk about something because she didn't want to. She used a sign for an explicit sign for intercourse. She was raped repeatedly, and I think that is associated with the people whom she lived with, which may have been an extended family situation. So talking about her sister or her mother, this mushroom elicited a memory, but she doesn't want to talk about all those people because she was raped by one of them.
What happened here was extremely vivid, but unintelligible.
I didn't have enough context. I didn't have enough context.
I know, this is why I said, can you decipher it?
Right. If I have context, I can follow. If I miss something, anything, and I'm out of, it seems that the story moved. The story moved from this home and the people and the sister to suddenly stepping over mushrooms or stepping into a pool or something, and then you don't know. You need to have the picture first.
Este foi apenas o início de um fluxo infinito de histórias que Lucy representou, desesperada para que entendêssemos. Elas têm aparência de narrativa, mas muitas partes se perdem. E assim que julgávamos ter entendido uma cena, ela se fragmentava em outra. Um gesto claro que ela repetia muitas vezes era o de um bebê sendo embalado.
Lucy is the most amazing mime, and we've just seen something incredible. I mean, so Marceau would give his eyes to be able to do this, but we don't know. But we don't know what it is.
Mais uma vez, o sinal do bebê.
Olha.
The confusion is I don't know whose babies she's talking about, whether she's talking about herself and her sister, or if she's actually had a baby, and it's not clear who she's talking about. Two sisters. She actually tries to remember. She's using the sign for dream, but I think she means remember. But she can't remember specifics.
The question of the structure of memory in the absence of language is a very, very interesting and tantalizing question. I think it's absolutely clear that Lucy has very vivid, detailed, concrete memories, and thousands of them. Whether or not they can take autobiographical form and fit into a chronology or a narrative, I'm not sure, partly because at the moment she only has the beginnings of this coordinate system of a calendar and a map, in which to locate memories in space and time.
There's a man chasing her and she was scared and she was running away.
Chegamos a uma história que já havíamos ouvido.
So the man was a policeman and caught her and put her in jail. Somebody was trying to help her because a man was chasing her, but she's mentioned jail. That man wasn't the police. They put her into jail to protect her. Somebody was chasing her and after her and she needed help and they put her in jail to protect her.
And there was a male subject who ran through the complex here, evidently had been bothering her or something. And the officer got a hold of her. She tried to get away from the officer. He had to handcuff her. And I took her back to the station. I came up and helped him out and took her back to the station. We never found the other individual.
A narrativa do policial fixa a história de Lucy no espaço e no tempo, mas continuamos sem entender o que aquilo havia significado para ela.
She doesn't want to be pregnant. Yes, definitely pregnancy. And I was scared, and she doesn't want to have another baby.
Quando deixamos Lucy, não havíamos conseguido desvendar seu mistério. Suas histórias pareciam ter a mesma qualidade efêmera de sua vida. Elas evocavam uma intensa série de fragmentos, de fugas e abandonos.
So she's in flight, she's in transit. It's not quite clear where or from what.
It interests me that Lucy's escaping, put her here and she escapes and she leaves and she travels. And it's a good question, where? What is she looking for?
Well, what she's looking for is home. But where is home? I'm just thinking of something in the New Testament. Jesus says, all animals have their homes, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head or whatever. The question of home for a human being is a very, very complex one, and nature alone cannot provide a home for us. We need culture to feel at home, and culture involves language, and so to some extent it may be that without language and without culture there is some radical homelessness for human beings.
Voltei para Nova York, a cidade que se tornou meu lar. Mas não consegui esquecer meu encontro com Lucy. Como ela estaria se virando? Será que tinha aprendido sinais novos? Isso permitiria que ela revelasse mais sobre seu passado? 3 meses depois, decidi fazer outra visita.
Follow-up is essential in medicine or natural history. We're looking at processes in time, developments, failures to develop, whichever. And in particular here, of course, we may be seeing Lucy at an absolutely critical point, hovering on the brink of language, on the verge of language. If she is able to achieve language, this will not only be an achievement of language, but an entry into a culture and a society which depends on language, and an entry into modes of thought and modes of abstraction which depend on language. Whether she will achieve this, of course, one doesn't know. She is certainly intelligent, but she is an adult, and she may be past some sort of critical age, so there is a great question mark here, and one needs to see her.
Lucy ficou feliz em nos ver e estava ansiosa para se comunicar.
You're signing, it's improved. I sign and I improve step by step. And the sign, let me see. Acting, I do mostly acting. I act out. Lucy, I can spell Lucy. Let's see, what is this? D-O-E, Lucy Doe. Lucy Doe. Yes.
Lucy tem aulas de língua dos sinais uma vez por semana. E Karen, que é deficiente auditiva, pratica com ela entre as aulas. Mas será que houve alguma melhora desde nossa última visita?
It's more baby talk. It's similar to the way 3-year-olds talk, where sometimes it is a sentence, and sometimes it's parts of sentences, but it's not actually a sentence. So it's close to baby talk, a lot of her signing.
One observes in the normal development of language, whether it's with speech in hearing children or sign in the children of deaf parents, that the 3rd and 4th years of life are tremendously important. At this point, one changes from an infant, which literally means non-speaking, to an articulate, verbal human being. You become a verbal being in the 3rd and 4th year. There's a sort of neurological genius at that time for acquiring language. And in a mysterious way, because more is acquired than is taught. And it's almost as if all sorts of innate powers are being stimulated and released and liberated and evolving. If that time is missed, there can be trouble, because one has passed this wonderful age. Now, if 8 is too late, what is 20 or 25, whatever Lucy is?
Mas, por enquanto, essa questão passou para segundo plano depois que descobri um detalhe na história de Lucy que me desconcertou.
I just discovered that Lucy can hear a little tiny bit when she's close to the telephone and she's walking by. She can hear it ring, and from the past, observing, she's a fantastic observer, she noticed that when there's this noise, people go and pick it up and start talking. And so she tells the staff, she says, the phone's ringing. She hears blah, 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 blah. And she
Como
puts it
devemos
down.
interpretar isto? Será que ela escuta e não percebe? Será que se trata de conversão histérica? Ou será que está fingindo?
Susan, we keep hearing birds. Can she hear the birds?
The birds, no. Cars, I can hear, not the birds. Cars, going back and forth, yeah.
Did you hear that, driving off? You heard that? You did, an unpleasant sound, an unpleasant noise. I wondered if we could use the recording system here as an amplifier and sort of see if we could give her the birds.
Tive a ideia de improvisarmos um teste de audição.
Lucy, okay, she knows all about this. Now, if I can, and I hope it doesn't upset her, I'm going to emit a piercing shriek, because I want to know if she picks this up or if she responds. My feeling is that she doesn't, but if I go, ah! Like that, there wasn't much response there. No. I don't think Lucy responded there. What about whistling?
Ela não ouviu o grito, mas pareceu ter me ouvido assobiar. Ou será que estava apenas imitando o que me viu fazer? A pergunta continuava me intrigando. O que exatamente ela era capaz de ouvir? Decidi visitar o especialista em audição do hospital.
I got somewhat mixed feelings about Lucy's hearing. On the one hand, she doesn't respond to very loud noises, to shouts, to explosions. On the other hand, she said she would pick up the sound of a phone as she passed it. And she seems to me to be profoundly deaf. But I was wondering what you found when you examined her.
What we told Lucy was to indicate by raising her hand each time she heard a tone that was presented through earphones. We start at a level where someone who has normal hearing should be able to hear it. If she responds, then we reduce the loudness of the tone. If she fails to respond, then we increase the loudness of the tone until we do get a response. This is Lucy's audiogram, which shows responses at the 80 to 90 decibel level. In contrast, this is a normal audiogram, which shows responses at the 10 to 20 decibel level across a wide range of test frequencies. Her hearing is so bad that even with a conventional hearing aid, it would not improve her hearing to the degree that she would be understanding normal speech.
Ficou claro que a audição de Lucy nunca tinha sido suficiente para estimular sua capacidade de falar, nem ela havia sido exposta a tempo suficiente à língua dos sinais formal para que aprendesse a usar a linguagem visual. Mas pensando na intensidade com que atuou para nós, eu não conseguia me convencer de que aquele era o fim da história. Na manhã seguinte, decidi tentar algo novo. Eu estava lendo uma nova biografia de Darwin, com belas ilustrações. Quis saber como Lucy reagiria a elas. Talvez os desenhos a estimulassem a contar mais.
There's a girl and a boy, like taking off, escaping. Canoeing, are they?
Canoeing or...
And they're in this boat. And the boat has kind of wide, high sides. And they're going along. No.
I get the feeling today, more than before, that she really wants to connect through the picture or any pictures or with her signs and her gestures. She wants to belong. She wants to be part of what's going on, and she's much more frustrated when she's not. When she doesn't understand what's going on, she's much more frustrated than a year ago when I first met her.
Words.
So the picture is a way of communicating also. I share your world. I understand what this is.
She's an inveterate storyteller. She is dramatic. Narratives pour out of her.
We're trying to get the differentiation.
Narratives are the basic form of communication between all of us. And obviously narrative precedes language. And there were mimetic narratives and acted narratives long before there were spoken narratives.
Said goodbye to the man, gave the ring back.
Narratives are about cohering in meaning and development and explaining.
There is definitely a component of storytelling that she does enjoy, and she also needs to tell a story, but you don't always know when she's leaving the story that she needs to tell and just telling a story for the fun of telling a story, or connecting. I think connecting to us.
I have the same difficulty myself. Like Lucy, I am a storyteller, but my stories consist of words, and as a man steeped in words, I was amazed at how Lucy had kept me entranced for 2 days, just acting out her thoughts with no words at all.
Na manhã seguinte, Lucy nos levou ao shopping center local. Eu achava que ela não tinha um lar, mas aqui ela me pareceu se sentir em casa. Era como se ela tivesse encontrado uma linguagem comum. Não a falada, nem a dos sinais, mas a linguagem universal da moda, da TV, do consumismo. Então, para minha surpresa, Lucy entrou numa livraria.
This, I think, above all, sort of shows the world which she cannot enter, but which is tantalizing in a way, and all these brightly colored books, and people come in, and there are certainly pictures sometimes which will illustrate roughly what it's about, but only roughly.
O que a atraiu ao domínio do mundo impresso? Um mundo inacessível a ela. Talvez tenha percebido que o sentido da linguagem estava aqui. Mas eu estava apenas romantizando. Este era um lugar tanto de imagens quanto de palavras. Primeiro, jogadores de futebol americano. Depois, um anel de noivado e um calendário.
K-U-L-Y. Now, is it finished? Is it finished? Yes. Oh, it's finished. She knows this. It's finished. She's trying to find the date. Let's see, the 29th is finished. Tuesday, tomorrow, Wednesday, now. Wednesday's now. She knows today. This is amazing. She didn't know this 2 months ago. It's amazing. She knows how to read a calendar, at least this month.
I see that the National Geographic has put out a special issue, Emerging Mexico, and maybe we'll find some pictures here which will have special resonances for Lucy. Let's see.
Conforme virávamos as páginas, tínhamos a impressão de que as fotos despertavam lembranças de um lugar e uma cultura que ela conhecia.
Prayer cross, another cross.
Mas não dava para ter certeza. E era tentador demais envolvê-la com nossas fantasias.
Handcuffs.
Handcuffs.
She's giving her sign for police, which is sort of a backward sign from the American Sign Language for police. That's mine. She describes herself being pregnant and having a baby, and getting big with the baby. And she's describing contractions, and then there's a baby.
Quando estávamos quase indo embora, ela achou um livro que me deixou envergonhado.
I felt very strongly in the last day or two that Lucy would sort of say, what's going on? What's he talking about? What's he feeling? What are they saying? She is beginning to get meanings, but from getting a few words, and indeed from even a lot of words, from a lexicon to a language, I think is still an infinite gulf. I don't know whether she will cross it or not. I think she's hovering on the edge. If she does cross it, I think she might, to some extent, be welcomed by the deaf community and a signing community and find relationships and work and a reasonable life. But I can imagine the opposite. I can imagine that she will not be able to cross this Rubicon.